So there we go. We 3-1'd with Modern Zoo here. The deck did exactly what I wanted it to. To go over it against, I didn't really do a great job at the very beginning. We did beat Delver. We beat Delver. We very narrowly lost to Affinity. I checked the next card that I would have played, and if I'd drawn the card that I was going to draw before I lost a turn earlier, it was a Bolt, and I would have won the game. If he had not drawn, if he had drawn pretty much anything but the Etched Champion, we also would have won that game. So it was a very, very narrow loss. Everything sort of went right for him, and everything sort of went wrong for me. So it's just, you know, it's. I'd still say that it's in our favor. Affinity is probably like 60-40 in our favor. It's not super in our favor, but it's still in our favor. And then we beat a, other than the two Delvers, we also beat a red deck wins today. It was Ari Lax who ended up playing for Star City Games, and I don't know if his recording is actually going to come out since we bumped him out of prizes. So I guess I'm not going to be famous, but whatever, that's fine. It was, in fact, the mutagenic growth version, and it also had Geist of St. Taft, which I'm only guessing is there for things like Scape Shift and to keep it alive, keep Eidolon alive for the Ascendancy combo deck as well as Delver. Johnny did a lot for us today. Anytime he popped up, he won the game pretty handily. So I'm actually really impressed with the Johnny. When I was trying out the big zoo, Johnny was by far the best. Sarkhan was very good, don't get me wrong. Sarkhan is actually very, very, very good for zoo, big zoo specifically, if you're thinking about having a Planeswalker threat, which is better against things like Control, than something like Hell, Thundermaw, who's better against like mid-range and aggro. But Johnny was great. I am glad he's a 2-of. I wouldn't put him anymore as a 2-of, but his extra life gain was a factor. His tap down was a factor. Anytime I played him, he was a threat that needed to be answered. With 22 lands and going up on the curve a little bit, he's perfectly fine. Gore-Clan Rampager also was stupidly good. He was good just because I was able to pressure my opponents and race, which is what he's used for. And with him, along with Johnny Vengeant and Treetop Village, which is another one of the reasons why I have extra mana for, we should have a pretty good game against mid-range. I mean, if this was Knight, it would be very, very good against mid-range. But we've got a lot of cards against mid-range. With Path, Johnny, and Rampager, we solidly have around 10 different cards to deal with most of their threats. Helix, again, is necessary as a 4-of right now for that red deck wins matchup specifically, as well as Delver. It does help swing the life total back towards your favor. Bolt is Bolt, Path is Path. There's nothing really else to say about it. Smiter, would I rather have Knight over Smiter? In a short answer, yes. In a long answer, no. And the reason why is because, as you guys saw with the red deck win, or not the red deck wins, the Delver matchup, I replayed him like 7 times. He did have counterspells in his hands. He was a threat that they can't deal with, and they have to like double bolt in order to get rid of, and it puts them, even after cruising, puts them behind in tempo. That's the crazy part, is Luxodon Smiter takes a tempo deck and makes it go behind in tempo in order to deal with it. Otherwise, they're dead. That being said, he's better than Knight. If Delver and Junk was switched in popularity right now, I'd be playing Knight, simply because getting Kessick Wolfrun in that situation is way more important than not being countered by Luxodon Smiter. Pride Mage, do I choose Pride Mage over Ooze? Yes, I choose Pride Mage over Ooze. My reason is less pod. Pod is a thing, but unless, like, pod is only one thing, and Affinity is something that I use it for as well as Twin. I'm sorry, Ooze I only use for pod. It sometimes is used against control decks. It sometimes is used against mid-range decks. Ooze is both very good in those matchups, but not like outstanding like, say, Qasali Pride Mage is against Twin or Affinity. And since Twin and Affinity are still popular decks, And now that we've got Ascendancy combo, which is rising in popularity, it's another reason to run it. This still goes against Pod in the Pod matchup, so it's another reason to run it. So you still have lots of reasons to run Pride Mage, and a little bit less reasons to run Ooze. So Ooze is less good. Even though red deck wins, you want to say, well, it's got life gain. The truth of the matter is you're probably dead before you're able to go off with Ooze, and there's probably not that much in the yard for him to eat for you to make really that much of an impact. You would need to eat 3 different creatures in the yard in order to stop 1 bolt from red deck wins. So it's not actually that great. On the other hand, Tarmogoyf is still a beast. He's still doing exactly what he needs to do, which is not dying to bolt. That's seriously all he needs to do in the deck. He's not like the best beater in the world. In fact, a lot of the time, Lexodon Smiter or Gore Clan Rampager is a better beater. But Tarmogoyf, he just sticks around, man. He doesn't. It's hard to kill him, and that's the main reason why you want to use him in this kind of deck. I cut 2 Loom Lion to fit into Treetop Village. I'm not sad about that. I'm still seeing just enough amount of 1-drops, and I'm going into my 2-drops. I've got a very good curve here, so it's actually, I'm not the saddest in the world not to have 2 Loom Lion. In fact, I was thinking a little bit earlier that having 4, 4, and 4 is not where I wanted to be, because I wanted something a little bit more explosive, aka you can see with Johnny, because Modern has slowed down a little bit, and as such, Loom Lion is outclassed, as well as Curdape. They're outclassed by other 2-drops currently in the format. So it's I still want a solid amount of 1-drop beaters. I mean, that's what makes the deck tick. But that's my reasoning for cutting the 2 Loom Lions. Again, we've got our fetches here, and mostly going towards white and green, so that way I don't auto lose in the red deck wins matchup. As you guys saw, I was doing fetching very conservatively. It's also there for against like Blood Moon and stuff too, which has less. Is there less? But Delver and Twin is still a thing. Fallout came out of the main deck when I was playing it. I cut the Rampagers for Fallout. I didn't regret the decision back then. I don't regret cutting it now. There's more stuff in the meta than just Delver. So yes, Fallout is still good, but it's not the best. Choke is there again for Scape Shift, stuff like that. Blue decks in general. We can mix and match all day, and maybe next time we'll play, I'll show you more about the sideboard. Refraction Trap, still pretty good. Again, I said, like, it's alright against red deck wins, and actually can be great against red deck wins if you manage to use it and blow up one of their creatures while doing it, like an Echelon. Because it saves you lots of life at that point. At that point, it's better than Harrow. But it's mostly there because it also can go in against the Scape Shift matchup, can also go against the Twin matchup, can also go against the Delver matchup. So it has more uses, and I don't want to just simply put in a very powerful sideboard card against red deck wins, which is currently about 8% of the metagame, only to get blown out by not having more sideboard cards against the other matches I'm very much more likely to see, like Scape Shift and Twin, and not Twin, Scape Shift and Delver. Stony Silence was good. Again, if any of these sideboard cards popped up against the Affinity matchup, I probably could have won very single-handedly. I'm not sold on Hushwing Griff right now. It was there because I didn't have enough against Pod, but since I added Rest in Peace to the sideboard like 5 seconds before this event, I might cut it for something else that's maybe better against like mid-range. The Rest in Peace is there for Ascendancy combo, as well as being pretty good against the Pod deck. Ascendancy, yes, they can deal with it by bouncing it with with Cryptic Command, or they can counter it. It does buy you time. If you put down a Rest in Peace, it buys you time to do more attacks with your Wild Noctowl. And get in more damage, and they are weak to damage, even with their better mana base now. They are still weak to damage, because they'll be reliably bolting themselves for 3 turns. So you can get in there a lot with this damage. You've got a really good clock against them. Aside from that, if this manages to stick around, they can bounce it with Cryptic Command, but by the time they bounce it with Cryptic Command and then go off, you've already attacked like 1,000,000 times, and they're probably dead. David Mind Sensor is done in my previous testing a lot of work, so I wouldn't cut that. If I was saying there was things that I'm willing to cut, it would be the Refraction Trap, which is good, but not great against the red deck wins. The Hushwing Griff, the Gore Clan Rampagers, as I just haven't seen a lot of junk, However, that being said, I would keep them in currently during my testing. And the Johnny, which I'm hesitant to take out because it performed really well today. That's it. We went 3-1. We beat some pros. And remember, guys, to feed your animals. Thanks for watching.